This will be my opening video in the series of videos I'll be doing on the history of Christianity. I wanted to make this video to get a few things out of the way and to help you to understand things as I begin to talk about them in the core of the videos I'll be making. And I thought if I get these things out of the way now, if I have to bring them up again, you'll have some idea of where I'm coming from and what I'm talking about. So you won't have to keep going back and checking videos and so forth. Anyway, I've got about 4 or 5 books that I'm reading now. And I've got one on order by N.T. Wright that someone recommended to me. And I'll be having it in a few days, and I think there'll be a lot of good material in there from what this person tells me about the book by N.T. Wright. But anyway, you can't separate Christianity from the culture and the history in which it came from. You just can't do it and have a true understanding of the history of Christianity. When Jesus was born and began his ministry, there was a lot of things going on then that had not gone on prior to the period of the Maccabees. The law was more stricter. The Pharisees and Sadducees, who were interpreters of the law, became very strict. They're kind of like fanatics to me. And that was because of what had happened during the period of the Maccabees, when Antiochus Epiphanes took Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, set up idol worship in the temple, offered swine on the altar, and the Maccabee revolt. They took it back, rededicated it to God, and it seemed like they became more strict then. And I can understand that. I mean, look what had happened to them. Look at the hardships they'd gone through, and they probably knew it because they had disobeyed God, and they became very strict in what they were doing. And that type of strictness didn't exist before then. Sure, there was some strictness in it, but nothing like after the period of the Maccabees, and especially when the New Testament opens up, and you have these Pharisees and Sadducees there then interpreting the law. In fact, placing burdens on people that just that they didn't even follow themselves. This is one of the things that Jesus had to face during his ministry on earth. You've heard Jesus talk about traditions of men. And so many people, just fail to understand what Jesus was talking about because they don't understand the culture and the history in which Jesus came into, or the culture or the history of which Christianity came out of. And they want to accuse the Catholic Church of following the traditions of men, and they're clueless as to what Jesus was talking about. But what he was talking about was the traditions of men, and it had to do with what the Pharisees and Sadducees had done to the law that burdened people down in their everyday life. For instance, they had one of the laws, the way they interpret the laws on travel on the Sabbath, where you can't travel over a certain distance on the Sabbath, like 3/5 of a mile or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. But anyway, from your home base, you could go no more than something like 3/5 of a mile. So what the Pharisees and Sadducees did was established several home bases throughout Jerusalem. So if they left one home base and went 3/5 of a mile to another home base, well, now they say, well, we're at our home base now, so we can go 3/5 of a mile again. So they'd go 3/5 of a mile again to another home base, and they say, well, we're at another home base now, so we can travel. So what they were doing is just building hedges around the law, violating the spirit of the law themselves, but yet they expected the people to carry it out. And that's what Jesus is talking about when he says you burden people down with these traditions, and it makes it they can't even bear it. So this is the strictness in the culture in which Christianity would come out of. Now, some of this would boil over into the Christian world. When Jesus ascended back into heaven and Peter preached the first sermon there on the day of Pentecost, you had thousands of Jewish converts coming into Christianity. Now, you can imagine this. Here they are, all of their life they have followed one code, that is the Old Testament. But all of a sudden now, the apostles say, no, you don't have to do that anymore. You can imagine the confused mind they must have had. What do you mean we don't have to follow that anymore? That's in our Bible. That's what the Old Covenant says. And here the apostles, no, we have a New Testament now. We have a new covenant now that we will follow. The Old Testament is gone. The Old Covenant is over with. We have a new covenant now that we must follow. And these are the things that the new covenant tells us to do. So you can imagine the confusion that must have been there when these people begin to realize, we don't have to do that anymore. We're under a new covenant. And what the apostles had to do to try to break them out of this mold. And this is something that with some of the Jewish people would continue for years to cause problems within the Christian community. For instance, like the day of worship itself. There were a lot of the Jewish converts who wanted to hold on to the old covenant, the Sabbath. And it was gone. It was abolished. The new standard for the New Testament and the New Covenant would be the Lord's Day or Sunday. But yet they wanted to bring this into the Christian world with them, something that had already been abolished. So out of this culture of Judaism came a lot of baggage that would be brought into the Christian world. And as these videos unfold, you'll begin to see some of that baggage and how the early apostles had to deal with that, how they had to teach people, no, that's not the way anymore, and teach them what God has for them now. It's like, being born again. You got to relearn things. So this is the culture and the history in which Christianity would come out of. It would come out of Judaism, and it would bring a lot of baggage into the Christian world that had to be dealt with by the early church, and especially these apostles from say 30 A.D. up to 100 A.D. And new problems would begin to be presented to them that they would have to deal with. So there was a lot these early apostles had to deal with. And as I deal with this period of the apostolic period, hopefully you will see some of this and it will be able to help you. I hope in some way this video helps you to understand where I'm coming from and the background and the culture in which Christianity came from. And that will help me in the series on the history of Christianity. Until next time, this has been Godly Saying. God bless.